so much for coming today. Our class has been working on the Edgar Allan Poe story, The Telltale Heart, and they're producing it today like a radio play. It's got all the sound effects, and we have the podcast version that I'm going to be emailing out so you can see what you can hear. What would it sound like as a podcast with the sound effects, and then the streaming version, and you can see how the sound effects are made. That being said, can I have a big hand for our Theater 2 class?
Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True.
Nervous. Very, dreadfully nervous. I am. But why would you say that I am mad?
The disease has shattered my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was a sense of hearing acute. I heard all the things in heaven and earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad?
Heart you, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story.
It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night.
Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it.
Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever.
Now this is the point you fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work.
I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I tried to latch at his door but so gently. And then, when I made it opening sufficient for my head, I put it in front of him. All closed, and I had no light shown out. And then I pressed it in my head.
Oh, you would have liked to see how kindly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me a whole hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed.
Ha! The man had been so wise at this, and then, my head was well in the room. I undid the lantern cautiously. So cautiously. I undid it just so much that a single ray fell upon the vulture's eye.
And this I did for 7 months, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he's passing.
So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed, to suspect that every night Mr. Cole I looked in upon his watch.
Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious when I opened the door. I watched his minute hand with more quickly than mine did. And before that night, I felt it seemed my I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph to think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he had not even a dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved from the bed, suddenly, as if startled. And you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with thick darkness. The curtains were closed, fastened, and terrible. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out,
Who's there?
I kept quiet, still, and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not think of anything. Meantime, I did not look.
He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I had been night after night, hearkening to the death watch of the old one.
Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of It was not a groan of pain or grief. Oh no, it was the low stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overturned from awe. I knew the sound well.
Many a night, just then, with all the world out from my own prison. Deep in the structure. The terrors that struck it.
I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at first. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first light noise. When he had turned in the bed, his fears had been ever since growing upon him.
He had been trying to fancy the causes.
He has been saying to himself, it is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It will be a mouth crossing the floor. Or it is merely a creature which has made a single sound.
Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with his suspicion, but he had found all in vain. All in vain was death as a frozen heart, and soft with the black shadow before him, and a mellow and it was the mournful influence of the unreceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he never saw beyond the grave, to feel the presence of my memory.
I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him call again. I was going to open it a little, very little, so I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple dim ray, like the thread of the spiders, shot up from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye.
It was open, wide open, as I grew furious as I gazed upon it.
I saw with perfect distinctness all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that showed the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot.
And have I not told you what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the sense?
Now I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates a soldier into courage.
But even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray among the eyes.
Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew louder and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme.
It grew louder, I say, louder every moment.
Do you mark me well? I've told you that I'm nervous. And now the dead are at the midnight. Amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise that excited me uncontrollable terror.
Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder, I thought. The heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor.
The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done.
After many minutes, the heartbeat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be a little while how I could see straight on his side.
I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there for many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more.
If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body.
The night waned, and I worked hastily but in silence.
First of all, I dismembered the corpse.
I carved the head
And the arms.
and the leg.
I then took out 3 points from the flooring of the shoulder and deposited it all between the stacked arms.
I had replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door.
I was bound to open it with a light heart, for what now had I to fear? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they had been deputed to search the premises.
I smiled, for what I had to fear. I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent from the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them in search well.
I led them, at length, to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victims.
The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerfully, they chatted of familiar things, but ere long I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone.
My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued to become more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued to gain deafness, until at length I found the noise was not within my ears.
No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently, with a high-end voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dual, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased.
Why would they not be gone?
I paced the floor and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased.
Oh God!
What could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung my chair which I had been sitting in. I grated it upon the boards, but the noise overrose and continually increased.
It grew louder.
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 And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible? They heard not?
Almighty God, no, no.
They heard! They suspected! They knew! You're making a mockery of my word!
This I thought, and this I think, that anything was better than this agony, anything was better than this, anything was tolerable than this derision.
I could hear those hypocritical, I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die.